Well, now I'm delighted to introduce our featured presenter this afternoon. Raquel Hatter is Deputy Director of the Human Services Program at the Kresge Foundation, which supports the advancement of human services organizations to accelerate social and economic mobility for people with low income. She has spent the past 25 years supporting adults, children, and families through a variety of roles, including serving as the Practitioner Vice President and CEO of Whaley's Children's Center in Flint, Michigan, and as the CEO of Family and Children's Services in Nashville, Tennessee. Most recently, Raquel served as Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Human Services, a department that serves more than 2 million Tennesseans. In this role, she identified ways to improve the outcomes for individuals and families across various support systems. Under her guidance, the department adopted a two-generational approach to poverty, which addresses the needs of children and parents simultaneously. Raquel spoke at our policy summit last year, and she completely brought down the house. It was a universal decision by all in attendance that we really needed her to be on this stage today. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Raquel Hatter.
That's so not fair. Brought down the house. Is that how you said it? Good afternoon. I don't know about all this bringing down the house stuff, so let me see if I can do it. Well, I'm so happy to be here, and I thought I'd start off by seeing how cool you guys are. So if I say, all right, what are you supposed to say? I see you. Okay. All right. So let's try one more time. All right. All right, then. FYI is in the house. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really happy to be here. It's been an awesome time. This is impressive, Karen. Thanks so much to you and your team. This is amazing to still have this many people here on Friday afternoon with all this water around. That's really impressive. I was like, it's like a tent meeting or something. It's really cool. And so I walk around a little bit sometimes when I speak, but I wanted to start by laying some groundwork in terms of what I hope to accomplish in this conversation with you guys today. And I have a colleague here, I think he's in the room. Michael Shaw is one of my colleagues at Kresge, so I wanted to send a shout out to him. So anything that I share with you that we're doing, we do that in partnership at the Kresge Foundation. But I wanted to start with the theme of the conference, and that is ready, and being fully prepared, which Karen defined at the conference. And so this idea of being prepared, so often we talk about it specifically as it pertains to systems and things of that nature, which is really important. Today, I think probably mostly what I'm talking about when it comes to being fully prepared and being ready is us, is you, is I. To what extent are we on ready? Rafferty and Griffin talk about this concept of continuous motion strategy, which suggests that as much as all of us like stability is simply not an option. How we like for things to be the same. But this idea that somehow we have to figure out how to keep things moving and how to be ready at the same time. So it's part of what I want to share with you, and I really, really appreciate the frame of the conference. I'll start by telling you a little bit about Kresge, and then a little bit about myself and what my journey is like in this work, and why, like you, I have a heart and a commitment to kids and families across this country. So at the Kresge Foundation, our vision is to expand opportunity to individuals with low income living in America's cities. And for us on the Human Services team, we are particularly concerned about advancing and accelerating social and economic mobility, and we have a particular concern about racial inequity. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. We have a strategy that has 3 primary focus areas, which includes a focus on advancing policy at the federal, state, and local levels. Our fundamental premise is that the system as designed is flawed and is not engineered in a manner that is conducive to helping families to move toward pathways out of poverty. Now, what I'll submit to you, and I will note that this is not Kresge's thought, it is mine, so I take sole responsibility for it, but I would think that it's pretty congruent with what we're doing. Some years ago, when I was serving as commissioner at Tennessee, actually it was just a year or so ago, this idea of the human inclination I thought about. Now, at my core, I'm a practitioner, and I'm always a practitioner. How many other practitioners, social workers in the house, shout out to all you guys, helpers. All of us are helpers. Human inclination, I was thinking about Karen's grandson, and he said, I can do it by myself. See, the thing is that when you think about the human inclination, all of us are born with a desire and an inclination toward learning. We all are. If you think about this, particularly from a strength-based perspective. On top of that, our bodies, if we hurt ourselves, figures out a way to try to do what it knows to do to heal. So we have an inclination to learn and an inclination to be whole. So what I'm suggesting is that what it is that we're trying to accomplish, the system is not inclined toward the human inclination. See, the system, as we know it, operates in a manner that goes against the inclination of people and the capacity of people. And what I also submit to you is I don't think it got that way by accident. It's impossible to do something this complicated. But what I can tell you, I do think the system is doing what it intended to do. I'll tell you that. Because you cannot marginalize or oppress people without trying to do it. It's a decision and a choice. Now remember that, because if you believe that, then you have to believe that if people made the system on purpose, then people can remake it on purpose. And that would be you. That would be you. All right? All right, that's a good start. All right. So, a little bit about me and my personal journey. I come to you as a Flintstone. I'm from Flint, Michigan. That's what's up. I see you. Oh my God, anybody, some more people from Flint? Fifth Ward, though. I'm from the Fifth Ward in Flint. And so, I'm an alumni of Head Start. My mother had me as a teenager. She was in her high school senior year. She graduated early with a 3.9. She went on to school and she worked for county government. My grandmother, my grandparents, I should say, me and my mom lived with them until I was about 8 years old. My grandmother used to babysit me before I started going to Head Start. Then my mother had this grand idea to help her get a job. And so she went to work in juvenile justice, at which point I went to Head Start. My mom later in life, when she finished doing her work with the government, became a foster parent. And I was not at home at that time. I had moved out. My brother was there and would tease me and say, Miss Therapist, what are we supposed to do when this happens with a foster sibling? He's like, you don't live here, you're just a therapist. So he used to always tease me about what his life was like. I'm happy to tell you that I think that how my mom and my foster sibling's mother worked together was one of the most amazing foster parent, biological parent partnership that I've ever seen. This was years ago. To this day, my foster sisters and brothers come over my house. They still visit with us. Their mom is a part of our family to this day. And I know for certain that our family was made better because we had the opportunity to be in their lives and they had the opportunity to be in our lives. So that's part of my personal journey. Now, thank you. I started this work on the front line as a practitioner. Personally, I have a strong faith. And when I started doing this work, and I mean front line like respite worker, foster care, front line residential worker, clinician. And back then, and I think it's still true today, it's not, you don't always know why a thing can't happen. Or why is it that we have these rules for what a family or a child can't get? And who exactly came up with the parent-agency agreement? And it'd be all these things that you wouldn't know, but you just knew you had to follow these rules. I mean, you ever had a rule to follow that you thought was ridiculous? Ever? But sometimes when you're at that level in an organization, you really don't know why it is, but you are mad about it. And so, at some point, I was entrusted with more authority in my service, to be in management, and then to be at different levels like vice president and CEO. So then I learned that sometimes we were our problem because of the rules and policies that we created in our own shops. And then I went on to serve after an argument with the Lord as commissioner in Tennessee. I lost the argument, but I'm a better person having done it. Went on to learn more about what the system looks like. And what I know for sure, so often we talk about system, we're talking about the government or the public sector. Reality of it is that it's all part of the system, and we all have something to do with it in terms of what it looks like today. But I'll tell you, it's been a character-building journey throughout. A couple of things. When I was in child welfare, working with my team, I've always had the privilege and honor of working alongside some amazing staff and working with some amazing kids and families. But I used to wonder, like, what are we missing? Like, we're trained in TCI and how not to counter-aggress and Rogerian approaches and all these things. We were highly educated, going to all different kinds of conferences, and still we would miss it. And still we would miss it. And so then I realized that one of the most strategic tools in this whole journey is oneself. And so what I recognize is that in order to do this work, no matter where you sit, no matter what sector, and no matter what your position is, what I know for sure is hard to stay broken or in pain to help somebody with their own if we haven't dealt with ours. That's what I know for sure. To do this work in this season, we have to deal with our own issues. Now, if you don't think you have issues, ask somebody who will tell you the truth. All right? And so everybody know, you go to work, you know, oh, I got issues. Everybody know, right? Okay, but and you don't really have to go to work to know. You can look in the mirror and we know, right? Just saying. But then there's, I say, big I issues and little I issues. Little I issues, you probably can get away with those. But big I issues, you might need to talk to somebody. But it's kind of like baggage. You can't take all your baggage on the airplane, and you can't take all your baggage with you along this journey. So we have to be courageous enough to not hold anybody hostage to our own past issues. If you've ever had the unfortunate opportunity to work for an insecure leader, anybody ever work for an insecure leader? A wing cutter, don't give no air under the wing cutter, don't want nobody to know you know something type leader. Anybody ever? Now, if they're here with you, don't do it. Just saying. Now, this funny, but they're not jokes, right? Because we can all relate to it. But my point is this. What I know is that the people that we care about, these families and kids, they deserve the best of what we have to offer. This self-care piece, we have to take care of ourselves. And you know the people who work your nerve. There's times when you do not need to allow yourself to be entangled with what I call negatrons. You ever met somebody who never happy? To work with this lady, I say, how you doing? And 20 minutes later, we were both depressed. And so I started saying, what's up? Kept it moving. Because see, here's the thing. Let me be clear. Remember, I got a faith. I care, right? That she's sad, but I don't want to be sad. But I'm like, no, you're influencing me. I need to work on my clinical skills, right? So, but everybody know this. That's at work. And in your family, you know when you don't need to say, oh, I can't talk to her right now. I'm just being honest with you. You have to take care of yourself because in this work, all we do is impart and give and deposit into other people. That's what we do. If you really committed and you really care, that's what we do every day. We drive home thinking about it. We wake up thinking about it. And then you have no time for nonsense. No time for nonsense. These are the things that I've learned. I like to have fun, but I don't play. Serious about what we're trying to do. It's a difference. And so, what matters is the mission of what we're trying to do. My rule of thumb is first do no harm. First, do no harm. And it always, I don't care if it's in philanthropy, if it's in the public sector, if it's in the private sector, wherever it is, it always has to be about the kids and families that we care about. It doesn't take long to get distracted. You have to bring it back to the people who matter to us, who we care about. Bring it back to that. And I'm going to tell you that is how to recognize when we've moved away, from that very thing that we say matters to us. So I have like 3 points, but they have sub-bullets, and I was raised Baptist, and they have a timer. Let me see where we're going. All right, I'm going to try to do this. You know, my pastor didn't have these timers. I don't think it would have worked, but they didn't have timers. So, you know, sometimes in this work I've heard people say things like, hey, don't you hear the darndest things? Like you ever work with somebody who say they really care and really strength-based, and then they say the most deficit, ridiculous thing you ever heard. And then you got to run and tell somebody you're not going to believe. Anybody ever had that? And then you're like, I can't believe they can't see this. We all know. But anyway. But in one conversation, one time I was talking to somebody and says, well, so you work with people like who don't have capacity. I said, well, no. Now, so then I got to do my self-talk. Who are they? Where are those people at? I haven't met those people. Who are those people that don't have capacity, that aren't capable of a thing? Dennis Saleeby, in his book, The Strength-Based Perspective, his work, what he tells us is that we do not have the right or authority to decide what somebody's maximum capacity is. We don't get to do that. I've had people to ask me, so I promise you, these real questions, I'm telling you. So you think that we should be tracking if people have GEDs? Now, I pray first really quick and say, yes, I do. But then it's like this radical thought, right? But what I'm saying is that these are the things where you learn where people really stand. Pay attention to how people talk. Because we say we're strength-based, but are we really? Are we really? Do we really believe that the kids and families that we serve have something to offer? I've heard people on the front lines who run organizations say, well, and let me be clear. People who run organizations to break cycles of poverty, okay, say, well, you know, most of the people really don't want anything better. They really don't want that. And so, as I bite my tongue when something like that is said, is what I know is it is not true that people don't want better. Everybody wants better. It's a human principle. We all want better. But you know what? We all know that all of us don't have access to better. Those are two different things. It's two different things to say someone doesn't want better. But everybody wants better, but because of the intentionality of marginalization and oppression, one can get to a place where they think better is not an option for them. So what I submit to you, and what I said to that person, is that if you've come to that conclusion, perhaps you have not taken the opportunity to sit down and listen and understand a person's journey or story. Let's not draw conclusions. Let's not make assumptions about how does one get to a place of hopelessness? How does that happen? There's a reason for that. And until we sit down and listen to the stories behind the pain, then we can't render that conclusion. And I also told that person that I don't want you talking to a public policymaker in America. Because people run with that. Toxic stress is real for families. Families are forced to make really tough decisions. And you all know about the research on executive functioning. But when I had the opportunity to serve and lead in Tennessee as commissioner, I would start my budget hearings off by talking about the realities of poverty for kids and families. My budget was $3 billion, and we really supposed to be talking about money, but I figured they gave me the microphone. I'm gonna talk about the families. But for them, we wouldn't even have the money. But for poverty, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So I dare not start by talking about the money. I want you to understand how it is that we come to faulty conclusions in public policy. So what the research tells us is that this toxic stress that comes with poverty in particular draws on our survival skills. It does not give us the space to tap into our executive functioning skills, which is where we do our planning and organizing, and we all know this. And it's not that we don't have the capacity to do it, it's just that life doesn't give us the space to do it. It is not true that parents, we paint people with broad brushes, don't go to PTA meetings or parent-teacher conferences because they don't want to be there. Have we considered that they can't get the time off work? Have we considered that it's not paid time off work? Have we considered these things, or are we thinking about them out of context? But what happens is, because of the behaviors that come out of toxic stress, one can be rendered lazy or disengaged or not caring. And if you draw that conclusion, then you're going to create public policy and laws that are flawed just by virtue of you having a faulty premise in the first place. And that, my friends, is scary and dangerous. It's important that we understand that context. Real issues for kids and families. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the cost of the journey. And this idea that I call delegated authority, that no matter where we sit, no matter what our roles, no matter what our titles, no matter how important we think we are, all authority is delegated. We have it but for a season. We only have a title or a seat because somebody's trusting us. It's not the sum of who we are. I'm saying we have to honor it and be humble with it and know that we'll only have it for a season. And if we're going to be at the table, be at the table. And if you're not, give up your seat. Give up your seat. So I was talking with Karen about this racial equity stuff. We all mad about it, trying to figure out what to do about it. And so this different research they've been talking about recently about the implications of race and things on black women. I said, oh, I'm a black woman. See what they're saying. And so It's something to be in a fight on behalf of people and to also be subject to it. That's a different fight. Now, let's be clear. Everybody can be in a fight, but the fight is different if you're in a fight that you're subject to and you're trying to address a thing. It's not the same fight, let me be clear, but we all can be in it. As I was saying to Karen, you know, you have a black man, people will say they're afraid of him. I'm going with the stereotypes, right? If a black woman, she mad, so you can't win. So you're interviewing black man, black woman with one mad and one angry. Well, I'm scared of one and one angry. What are we gonna do? This is real stuff. This is for real. And so, anybody ever been to a zoo? Anybody ever seen an elephant? Now, does anybody think that if an elephant came in this room, we would notice it? But we've managed to always avoid elephants in a room. So what I know is, in order to avoid an elephant in a room, you have to do it on purpose. And what I submit to you is that we can no longer avoid elephants in a room. It's not acceptable. Because I'm going to tell you something. Other people are saying what needs to be said from their point of view. From their point of view. So we need to make sure that we don't ignore the elephant in the room. In A Dangerous Silence, Clint Smith cites Martin Luther King in 1968 speech where he reflects upon the civil rights movement. He states, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemy, but the silence of our friends." But the silence of our friends, the danger of silence. Let's quit ignoring the elephant in the room. So back to the cost of the journey. So we know that our vision is big. We're up against a lot, yet we have some amazing wins. FYI, I was just sharing some things that they just were able to accomplish on behalf of kids and families. But the journey is just that. We have to weigh the cost of the journey and know that there are going to be times when there's some setbacks. But it doesn't mean that we're going in the wrong direction. I mean, anybody, you ever took a college class and you didn't do as well as you thought? And you still took the next class? Part of the journey, right? You ever drop a class and said, I'll do that in my senior year, right? It's a part of the journey, right? So what I'm saying is don't be discouraged when you have a setback. A setback is an opportunity for a reset. You have to put it in perspective. Don't waste time. Don't use your neurotransmitters to go negative. Time is of the essence. And then I'll tell you about what I think of as a set mind and a mindset. So for me, a set mind is the values, the things that we know to be true, the things that we know work. And a mindset can be influenced by the circumstances that we're in when we forget about what we know. Because we're influenced by the circumstance, we forget about the thing we know. Being mindful of that. Figuring out how we keep ourselves in check. So how many people in here ever heard the word amygdala? So you know we got one, right? And you know it's about the size of an almond? And you know it can have you just act ridiculous if you don't get command of it, this emotional center, anger and things. So the amygdala here, we got our frontal lobe, short distance, long journey. So why am I talking about this? Because in this journey, you're going to get a little irritated. Who's been irritated? Who's been agitated? Who's had to make an effort to be nonviolent? Right? Who thought some stuff? Who wrote an email that you had to delete? Who wrote an email you wish you didn't send? Right? Okay, now let's get back to the amygdala. All right, I'm telling you, this will help somebody. So the thing about the amygdala and the frontal lobe is that generally the amygdala starts talking for your thinking center does. So what we have to do is, because what we want to do is stay true to our values. And for me personally, I always say I don't want to repent over nothing that I want to be intentional about that. I'm going to have to repent. I don't want to have to do something on accident. So we have emotions. So we have to arrest it, assess it. That's when we engage our frontal lobe, and then act on it. This fight that we're in, when you care so much about kids and families like we do, you are going to have times you want to jump on a table, flip a table over, but that are tough. And during those moments, we're at risk to miss it. As soon as we don't manage our own vessel, our own self, we're at risk to miss it. So it's important to recognize, what are your physiological triggers? How do you know when you might not be okay? You know when you're in a meeting. How many people's heartbeats speed up? Okay. How many people sweat? How many people start doing the ink pen like this? How many people start doodling? I used to do this, and then my staff figured it out, so I had to stop. There she go. I was just trying to, make sure my hair was good. But no, they figured it out. So I had to do other stuff. And I would flick the pen, and then one time it broke. But I wasn't angry, but they, who believes that? Because it flipped over across the room. I just had been flicking it so much that it got loose. But it's important to recognize this, because that's your opportunity to intervene and stay true to who you are, and to first do no harm, and to treat everybody with dignity and respect as we go through this journey. We have to command our own vessel. These things are important. So then, a couple more things. How many people ever met somebody with an ego, a big one? Aren't you like over it? So many people, and we're all educated, okay. But do you know how to do something? I'm over it. I am so over it. And I love education. It's all good, but what can you do? This is important. This is really important, and we forget about these things. And so let me tell you sometimes how ego shows up. There's this distinction between being right versus getting it right. Ego wants to be right. But we got to be about getting it right. Who cares who came up with the answer? It don't matter if you're the smartest person in the room, if you don't know how to do nothing. Don't nobody care. Being right versus getting it right. It's not even about who's going to get the credit. We just need to get this thing right. I don't care who got the answer. Where's the answer at? Kids and families are waiting. We up in here trying to figure out who's smart, who not smart, who got this degree, who doesn't have that. This is for real. Y'all know what I'm talking about. This is real stuff. Don't know. Okay, let me say it this way so it can seem like I have a doctorate. People are not very invested in the extent to which you've been highly educated and well-informed to demonstrate the ability to execute on zero. Okay? So, in other words, where I'm from, don't nobody care. Okay? So now, oh my mercy, I'm running out of time. All right. So then the other thing is, it's a difference between asking questions and questioning people. It's a difference. And when you're a learner and you want to learn, you ask a question from that posture. when you're questioning people, you're going to get a different reaction because probably that amygdala is going to kick in. So you have to learn how to ask questions so that people understand that you're only trying to understand. But people, for some reason, sometimes they make assumptions about what your motivation is. And if you say, I'm just trying to learn, people just don't buy it. But be mindful of the distinction between asking questions and questioning. And then, on the flip side of that, there's a difference between being asked a question and being questioned. There's a difference between that. Then a couple final things here before I get to the second close. Is that, you know, when you're making major change, first of all, transformational change is the departure from what we've always known to do. So inherent in transformational change is discomfort. So if you're comfortable, you're probably not doing nothing. I remember when I was working in Tennessee and the governor said, Raquel, I hear nothing but great, this is like 6 months in, I hear nothing but great things about you. I said, give it time. Give it time. Give it time, Gov, give it time. But transformational change doesn't allow us to stay in a safe place. It doesn't allow us to be complacent. I remember when it was a cold, really cold day, when Tennessee was having an ice storm coming. I've told this story before. It just sticks. Some stories of families just stick with you forever. And his mom, she'd had surgery, and her SNAP benefits were expired, and she had a son, and she was trying to figure out, she needed her benefits to be renewed so that she could ensure that her and her son had food that weekend. And I remember I was at the Capitol and I got her email, sent it to my staff immediately, because we were going to be closing at 4 o'clock early. And we took care of it for her. Well, I was glad about that. What troubled me is that, what must it be like to be a mom who has to email somebody in government because I need food to feed my kid? Now, I'm glad we were able to do it, but that was not enough. The question was, how is it that she needs us in this way? How vulnerable must that be? What does that feel like to not have the resources to feed your hungry child? What is that like? See, we stopped talking about people as cases or things like saying timeliness on a case. We started saying how many kids and families had to be hungry longer than they should have had if we didn't get something done in a timely way. That's different than cases and timeliness. Faces on cases. I just came up with that. So, you know. We use that. I got to remember it. All right. I'm about to go over real quick. They're going to have to play some song to get me off the stage really quick. So, Etch-a-Sketch. Don't get hung up on your mistakes. You got to move past it. Everybody know what Etch-a-Sketch is? Shake it off and keep it moving. Shake it off, keep it moving. No one to Etch-a-Sketch. Couple things. So they have these perceived barriers versus real barriers. You ask the question, can we do such and such? They say, we've never done that. That's not what I asked you. We've never done that. It's different from can't do it. Be mindful of the distinction. I used to ask my general counsel, what's the worst thing that can happen? She'd say, don't ask me that. I said, okay, am I going to jail or is it going to be a bad media story? It's a continuum. But let's be clear. This is all why I'm trying with my team to do what's right trying to get it right, not be right. People say, well, you know, we could do that because it's legal. Don't tell me about stuff being legal. You know how much stuff we've done in America and it was legal to people? So I'm a proponent of following the law, but don't tell me that because it's legal, it's right. And the best use of power is knowing when not to use it. So finally, this whole idea of barriers. I had to train myself to get outside of the parameters, to understand what is it that we need to change. When we started earlier, I said, this is intentional. So we have to be intentional about disentangling it. So we have to understand the barriers. It is true that there are rules and regs that say we can't do a thing, but it's also true that somebody came up with it. It is also true that somebody came up with it. So with this tape, I started to manage myself. So I call red tape congressional stuff, and I call electric tape at the federal level. Duct tape was Tennessee state law. And Scotch tape was stuff I could fix on my own. But we all have these types of tape. And I submit to you that we can get things done, but we have to be surgical and intentional about it. And all that tape, I promise you that the Kresge Human Service team, we're about to unstick some stuff through partners like FYI and partners like you guys. We need stickies, not electric tape. You have to move stuff around from time to time. We need some leverage and some flexibility so that parents and kids across this country can get what they need. And my final, for real, this is final. Dr. King talked about creative tension, and when he wrote his letter in the Birmingham jail. And what he was saying is that, first of all, the right time to do right is right now. And then he talked about the wait, W-A-I-T, that people always want us to wait. But the reality of it is, wait, W-E-I-G-H-T, the weight of the matter is too heavy to wait. And so this creative tension means that we have to, on purpose, be intentional about the dissonance that we create so that we don't allow people to be complacent, so that we know that there are no disposable kids and families in this country. And Seneca talks about the shortness of life. And what he says is that it's not so much that we don't have time or that life is short. It has everything to do with how we use our time, what we do with that time. And so what I submit to you is that inaction and action both yield an outcome. People would say to me, "What if we do this, that might happen." That's coming from a position of fear and risk averse. The more important question is, what if we don't? That's the more important question. And so, since Karen and all her peeps said I was going to bring the house down, I guess that you could call that bringing the house down. But I think I'm going to take it up a notch. Karen don't even know what I'm about to do. But I would like everybody to stand up for a moment, would you? Create a little space and teach y'all a little cheer. Y'all ready? Let's see if y'all can represent for FYI. All right? Okay, here's how the song go. Y'all gotta be ready, okay? Y'all ever heard of Too Legit to Quit? Okay. So here's how it goes. It's FYI. Too legit to quit, hey, hey. Y'all think I can do that? Okay, on the count of three. Now people, sometimes they get the hey, hey wrong. But hey, hey is when you be free, like you show, hey, hey, okay, and then you got to bust a move with it, okay? All right? Y'all ready? This is about kids and families, right? We on fire for kids and families, right? We're not quitting. We too legit to quit. We're not doing that. We mad about it. We ain't gonna hurt nobody, but it's gonna be painful. I don't know how that works. But somehow it's gonna happen. Okay, y'all ready? On the count of 3, we're gonna FYI, too legit to quit. Like, we want people to want tickets, okay? Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3, hit it. FYI, too legit to quit, hey, hey. FYI, too legit to quit, hey, hey. FYI, too legit to quit, hey, hey. FYI, dance, too legit to quit, hey, hey. FYI, too legit to quit, hey, hey. I see you. What? One more. FYI, what?